Hey everyone, welcome back to D&J's Epic Quest. I am Justin, and this is
This is Derek. How's it going, Justin?
it's going well. How about you, sir?
Not too bad.
Not
It's Monday.
It is Monday. Fucking Monday. Today seems
Yeah.
to go by like fast but slow at the same time. I always hate those days.
Yeah. I know what you mean.
Yeah. But yeah, how's it feel? Last chapter. Last mother fucking chapter. And then we've got some pretty big plans for our wrap up here, right?
Yeah. Should be a good time.
It-
A little kind of, I don't know if I guess you want to say surreal, but just maybe a little bit of a relief that we made it through one book, and I'm excited to start the next one.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know, I think it was about a quarter of way through Gardens of the Moon. I'm like, yeah, yep, I'm hooked. I'm ready to keep this rolling. Yeah. Our this will be our second to last episode of Gardens of the Moon. We have the epilogue that we have to read yet. And then after that, we'll be moving on to the next one.
Yeah. Should be exciting.
Should be really exciting. And as I'm sure that we've already explained, we're really looking forward to having a couple of guests who have read this book join us as we wrap up Gardens of the Moon in our next episode. So, also really looking forward to that as well.
Yeah. It'll be a lot of fun to have some maybe not different opinions, but but just two other perspectives, anyways.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. It'll be fun to just kind of banter, similar to like what you and I do, but with two other people who have read the book as well as read the book multiple times.
Well, one of them has. The others working their way through it.
Gotcha.
Hasn't finished the series yet, but
Right. Right. But has definitely finished this book.
yes.
Cool. I mean, I guess anything interesting? I know that we've talked, but anything that the viewers might be interested in?
Can I tell you my joke?
Yes, you certainly can tell me your joke. Oh
I
yeah.
told my wife this joke, and I said, "You're going to give me an eye roll when I tell you this joke," and I didn't even get that. She just looked at me like I was stupid.
I think that is an eye roll.
No, it was worse than an eye roll. But I
Oh,
told my dad this joke. I told my dad the joke, and he laughed his ass off. So,
all right. Well, let's hear it.
all right, this it's going to take a couple minutes. But so there's three guys, and they're walking through the woods, and they come across a magic lantern. And so one of them rubs it, and the genie comes out. And he says, "I'll grant each of you three wishes." So the first guy he says, "Well, my first wish, I want $1 billion." So poof, genie gives him a suitcase with $1 billion in it. Second guy says, "For my first wish, I want to be the richest guy in the world." So poof, the genie just deposits trillions and trillions of dollars into this guy's bank account, making him the richest guy in the world. Third guy says, "Well, for my first wish, I want my right arm to spin circles clockwise forever." So poof, this guy's arm starts going clockwise in circles. So the first guy, back to him, he says, "Well, my second wish, I want just I want a beautiful supermodel type wife, just gorgeous." So poof, Genie gives him this stunning, beautiful wife, and everybody's happy. Second guy says, "Well, I want a woman in the world to be madly in love with me, just adore me." Genie makes it happen. The first guy's wife even is just crawling all over this guy. Third guy says, "Well, my second wish, I want my left arm to spin circles counterclockwise forever." So, poof, Genie makes it happen, and he's got his arms going in circles opposite directions. First guy says, "Well, my last wish, I never want to be sick again." So, poof, Genie grants him perfect health, and he's never sick again. Second guy says, "You know what? I'm 29 years old. That's a pretty good age. I'm happy. I never want to age another day in my life." So, poof, Genie makes it happen. This guy is never going to age again. Third guy says, "Well, my last wish, I want my head to be bobbing up and down all the time." Poof, genie makes it happen. So these three guys, they go their separate ways, and a couple of years later, these guys, they happen to be walking through the woods, and they all run into each other. And the first guy says, "You know what? These last few years, I've been really successful. My $1 billion I've invested and turned it into 4 billion." The second guy says, "Wow, that's really great. These last few years, I've been awfully successful too. I've had startups and you know founded some charities and donated a ton of money to various charities. Life has been good." Third guy looks at the other two. He says, "Guys, I think I fucked up."
I've heard this joke before.
Oh, damn it.
But I don't understand what it is that the third guy was trying to was trying to do. If that makes it any better.
I don't know. So my boss told us that joke, and he's a pretty religious guy, so it caught us pretty off guard that he dropped the F bomb.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah.
I think it would be more funny if like we knew what the third guy's goal was supposed to be. I mean,
He didn't. I don't think he had one.
I don't know. I mean maybe his life is just not going very well.
Yeah, it's clearly not going.
Right, right. He's always bobbing.
Well, arms going everywhere. I'm disappointed, and not disappointed, but I wish you hadn't heard that joke before.
Sorry, TikTok ruins it for me. TikTok ruins everything.
Ah, son of a bitch.
I know. But yeah, I wish I had a joke for you. The only one that I can think of is what is a boxer's favorite part of the joke?
Punchline.
That's right. Yeah. Let's see.
That was just a guess,
No, you were 100%
but
right.
it fit.
Yeah. I don't retain jokes very well. The only joke that I know that is I guess interesting is there's a guy at a bar and he's got like a little cage with a frog in it. And so this girl at the bar is just really curious and walks up and is like, "Hey, why do you have like a frog in a cage over here?" And the guy is just like, "You wouldn't believe it if I told you, but this frog eats the best pussy in the world." And the girl's just like, "Yeah, right. No way." And then walks away. Another woman at the bar is also curious about why this man has a frog in a cage. And she approaches him and asks him, "Well, why do you have a frog? Why do you have a frog at the bar? Like this doesn't make any sense." And he was just like, "Well, you wouldn't believe it if I told you, but this frog eats the best pussy in the world." Well, this woman is very curious and she's just like, "Okay, let's give this a shot." So they end up back at his apartment or his place rather. And so, she's pantsless. She has no underwear on. And he puts the frog in the middle of like in front of her legs and nothing. Nothing. And the girl is getting impatient. She's just like, "I thought you said that this frog ate the best pussy in the world." And then he's just like, "God damn it, do I need to show you how to do this again?"
Clever. I was wondering where that was going.
Yeah, yeah, it doesn't really follow your typical joke trope, but yeah.
It works.
Yeah, it does work. I think this is the first time we've started off an episode with jokes.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
so. I was really excited about mine.
Sorry,
So hopefully somebody else out there finds it funny.
ends up giggling. Yeah, ends up with a case of
Yeah.
the giggles. Yeah,
Right.
but speaking of giggling, should we get into the chapter? Because there's definitely none to be had here.
There is no giggling in the chapter.
There is definitely no giggling. But I left my book at work, so you might have to read the epigraph.
I am locked and loaded, ready to go with it.
Sweet. Well, everybody, welcome to chapter 24 of Gardens of the Moon, which to the book is the last chapter. After this is the epilogue. So take her away, bird that steals.
I am the house, imprisoning in my birth demonic hearts, so locked in each chamber, some trembling in rage, antiquity. And these roots of stone spread the deepest cracks in the parched ground, holding forever the dream of fruit. Ah, pilgrims, come to my door and starve. It's pretty dark, but I kind of like that one.
It is really dark. I can't make heads or tails of anything, but from what I do recall, it was written by Azath. So,
It makes a little bit of sense to me.
gotcha.
And
Enough to spoil,
it,
or can you explain?
we'll have to talk about it later, I think.
We can swing back around.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, yeah. I think it definitely relates to this. I don't think it's in my first section, but it's somewhere along the way.
All right.
Actually, I think it's in my last section. I think,
Oh,
if I'm remembering right.
okay.
All right. Well, are we ready to keep kicking it down the road?
Let's do it to it, Laz.
All right. Behind the gate, the yard was empty. Crocus didn't know if he was too late or not as he ran up the stairs. As he reached the door, he was blown backward by an unseen energy. As Crocus picked himself up and collected himself, he realized it was a ward. He had run, literally, into these before, and he knew there was no way through. Back at the street, he didn't see anyone. If the Crimson Guard were there protecting him, they were doing it secretly. Crocus ran down the street and turned down the alley. There was a very small chance that the garden entrance was unprotected with magic. He would need to climb a wall, but he could handle that. He saw how tall the wall was and knew he would need a running start to overcome it. As he took a breather, he wondered what was the point. Baruch was a high mage, wasn't he? Even fingers commented on his strength. Baruch should be able to take care of himself. At that moment, a scream shook the street. Crocus dove to the wall as a monstrous shape filled the street not 20 feet from where he stood. Amidst the falling rubble, a dragon retook its feet. The wall that protected Baruch's estate had been destroyed. The dragon appeared to be stunned. Crocus was hesitant, but he ran across the street, hoping to make it to the safe haven of the garden. As he ran, he couldn't look away from the dragon, and couldn't keep his mind off the coin in his pocket. Before his eyes, the dragon began to change its form. Crocus couldn't look away as it turned into a shimmering haze. Crocus thought his luck had run out, and he was filled with dread. As the shimmering stopped, it left a giant of a man in the street. Crocus wanted to run, but he couldn't make his body do what his brain told him to. The man turned to Crocus's direction and took a gigantic axe from its belt. Crocus could only look on in horror. It spoke. What reason to continue this? The Empress permits your escape, Lord. Once again, she grants you mercy. Accept it and leave. Crocus whispered to himself that was a good idea, then came to the realization that the monster wasn't talking to him. He was focused on someone behind him. The man behind Crocus spoke. We run no further, Ghislaine. The man placed a hand on Crocus's shoulder and broke him from his trance. The man told him to get the fuck out of here. The man drew a massive two-handed sword. Though Crocus could hardly see it, it seemed to swallow the light around it. He stood in awe and blurted out that he saw him at the fete. The man addressed him as the coin bearer and told him to have no fear. For the time being, Brute had convinced him to spare his life. But Crocus needs to go now. This will be a close fight. The demon says he knows this sword and calls him Dragniparake and says he can smell the scent of Tiama in him. He has more Tiama in him than Tisti Andy blood. He continues on and says the Empress would reward his work. He only needs to agree and this fight can be avoided. Rake declines and the demon charges with his axe. As the two warriors battled back and forth, Crocus could only watch. Crocus became so nauseous that he fell to his knees. Rake was pressing the attack harder. At first, the demon managed a defense. Soon it was so desperate that it flung itself at Rake in a desperate state of attack. Rake's sword shot out of the demon's back, the demon shrieking in agony. Black smoke came out of the sword and turned into chains, wrapping around the demon. Rake drove the sword all the way through the demon's chest until the hilt hit bone. Rake and the demon met eyes. Just then, as the chains around the demon drew tight and pulled the monster into the sword, Rake turned to look at Crocus and said to Hurry, the alchemist was in danger and he could not protect him. Crocus ran.
I guess I just keep going back to, I mean, like everything is so built up to be this like massive opponent, and then they're just taken down within a couple of chapters. You know what I mean? Like there's this big anticipatory moments like with the Jag Hut and then even this Lord Galen, and they're just defeated right away. So I like part of me just wants more. Like I just keep wanting more.
I think we see Rake like not underestimating himself, but not giving himself enough credit as I mean, he's obviously killed a lot of people. I mean, he's got a sword full of slaves, basically, right? So I don't
Right.
know why he kind of shies away from his prowess.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's just, and maybe that's a big part of the problem is, in most conversations with Rake, is, as you say, kind of like underselling himself or being maybe just a tad too modest. So I think that to the reader, it
Yeah,
kind of
that's a
comes
good way to put it.
off, yeah. So it just in comparison, you've got someone who, undermines himself, so to speak, and is maybe a little too modest. And then you go to the opposite extreme with the Jag Hut and even this Galen Lord. They're meant to be this like big, powerful motherfuckers, and then so that contrast is just so stark that you almost expect it to be like a very prolonged battle, but that's not kind of what you get. So
And it was, I mean, obviously it went on a little longer. I kind of condensed it, from what it was, but uh, yeah, it was, another scene written that I could definitely visualize in my head, and just, kind of impales this thing, and then these chains shoot out of the sword and wrap it up, and then he drives the hilt, drives it to the hilt and sucks him in.
yeah, I almost get like a God of War Kratos type vibe with that, where like the chains just wrap around this demon and then, Rake just drives the sword right through his chest and now he's got another inhabitant.
Yeah, I never played God of War, but
You've never played God of War.
I'm an Xbox guy, not a PlayStation guy.
We got to get you on this, man. They're great games.
I don't have enough time for that.
You'd be surprised how much time you can squeeze in.
Between getting ready for it and actually doing it, and we put a pretty good amount of time into this between preparing and recording, and then when you actually edit it,
Yeah,
we put some time into it.
I would say it's close to like a part-time gig, part-time job.
Yeah. Oh, sure.
I agree with you. The visual of this chapter was just it was beautiful. Like similar to you, I was able to visualize everything that was taking place here.
Yeah. Yeah, it was pretty cool. Just, I mean, such a good writer. Uh, it just definitely paints the picture for you. You can see it. I can see it pretty easily, I guess.
Right, yeah. Yeah. So I was really excited to read it because it was just visually even on like the second and third time reading it, it was beautiful. Did you notice that the demon here calls out Animander Rake here for having what I from what I recall, Tiama is basically the Queen of Darkness, right?
I wasn't remembering what that was, and I hadn't dug deep enough to look.
I remember when we had that chapter where that is somewhat explained with the whole Animander Rake and the dragons and Tiama going for the light instead of dark type.
Oh, that's ringing a bell a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I can only assume that, I mean, he's the son of darkness, so that would be his mom. But it just kind of it brings in a little bit of like a perspective because clearly this demon has some age to him, enough to know what, you know, Tiama's smell would be. Like I'm sure that there's a certain signature there. Hopefully it's
Yeah.
not fish.
You can have a frog take care of that then.
Yeah, there you go. Bringing it back around. I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. That was good. That was good.
Um, I guess I did not catch that, but one thing that did stick out to me is when the demon of the dragon parade. I don't think we've seen him addressed that way, so I'm kind of wondering if that's like almost like an honorific title or something, because it doesn't seem like it would be like slur or anything like that.
Well, isn't Dragon Parake the name of the sword?
That was just Dragon Per.
Oh, maybe. I guess I didn't even put those two together. It might be, I mean, a combination of the sword and rake. So maybe he's addressing him and the sword.
Yeah, I mean, it might not mean much, but it stuck out to me a little bit. Um, Another thing that I hadn't really even considered before was that Baruch, we know he was an alchemist, but I never thought that he was, or made the connection that he was also high mage.
Yeah. I think that Alchemist is maybe just like how he appears to the public, kind of like a guise of some kind.
Yeah, I mean, he obviously, I get this feeling that he knows some shit about it,
Right.
but that's, yeah, like the day job, I guess.
Or the warning that he particularly accesses maybe deals with, alchemy or is related to alchemy, so to speak.
Yeah, could be.
But I mean, how scared do you got to be to essentially just stop in your tracks? Like, it's like a deer in the headlights type of analogy, like this big fucking, I think it was what, 12 feet tall that it was described as with a fucking giant ass battle axe, and you're just staring at it like, please don't kill me.
Yeah, he didn't even piss his pants. I mean, because I probably would
Oh yeah, I'm sure that he shit his pants.
have.
You're shitting your
But I suppose
pants.
you see something like that and you're kind of probably awestruck.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. You're just dumbfounded. You're just staring at it because you're like, I don't know what to do. This thing is fucking massive.
Yeah, exactly. I think my last thing for this section, and this will be my maybe my new little conspiracy theory, but I think Crocus must have access to some sort of magic, some sort of Warren, and just with it says he gets so nauseous that he falls to his knees. Well, we saw, when the tyrant was doing his shit, all the major, feel sick and stuff. But I kind of feel like it must be whatever Rake's Warren is, because he hadn't, like he was not wanting to unleash his Warren in the city until the last possible moment, and now he's done it, and now we got Crocus that's ready to puke his guts out, basically.
Hmm. I guess I never really put two and two together like that. I mean, I guess that's possible. I just always assumed with that line that he was just, I don't know, so scared that he was nauseous.
And it could be going to disagree with that because I mean maybe it's one of those things that both can be true, but I feel like I don't feel like that line is there unless there's a connection to some magic to it.
That's fair. I didn't even think of that. So, good on you, dude. That was
We'll have to wait a little bit to see here, I guess.
yeah, definitely we'll have to wait. But I feel like as a section in this chapter, it was I don't know. It came out swinging, you know, like the beginning of the chapter. This is literally the first section that you read, and I don't really feel like there's a ton of information in it, but on the other hand, it's it's very action packed. There's a lot of oh shit moments. Um, the only other thing that like had me really confused, and this kind of ties back into some of our late or the episodes we recorded earlier, but he makes this comment to Crocus about you know for the time being, Brood has convinced Rake to spare Crocus's life, but if you recall, it was Rake who had sent Surratt after Crocus, right? So is it like how exactly did Brood convince him? Was it simply just because of when I'm assuming it's the Crimson Guard who confronts Surratt in Karul's belfry, and you know how at the end they're like, give this message to your lord or whatever. You know what I mean? You know what I'm talking about, right? I feel like I'm having a hard time
Yeah,
explaining things. Um,
I, yeah. There's so much that it's even though we talk about this stuff, sometimes it's hard to retain all of it.
right, yeah. So I'm wondering if that is the message that Rake is referring to, but also it kind of gives me a little bit of a different perspective. Like before, I always thought that Brood had it out for Rake, but I think that maybe he's realizing, and the reason he had to get the fuck out of where he was in the north. I forget where he was when Crone and him were in that tent. But and yeah, the north in the Catland Plains. The reason for his haste was uh, he maybe didn't want Rake to make a bad decision, which he clearly did. So always just interpreted that as like Brood being against Rake, but now I'm kind of looking at it as like Brood is just maybe looking out for the bigger picture, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I think I'm seeing a little bit of that.
He realizes that there's a potential that Rake could make the wrong decision, so he gets the hell out of Dodge and finds out when he gets there from his Crimson Guard that yeah, there's a Tistiande that is, following Crocus, and then they intervene, right? So that to me, I don't know. I guess it just gives it a little bit of resolve. I know that in the previous episodes, I was like, I don't fucking understand any of that. It's kind of one of those things where like it's definitely something that happened behind the scenes. Not anything that the reader was informed of, so I could very well be wrong, but I guess that feels stronger than how I felt previously about it. So I'm gonna leave it at that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't think I've got anything to add to that.
But yeah, I just such a beautiful section. It
It was, I mean, the whole book's been fun. There
yeah,
hasn't been a lot of coasting through it, I don't think.
it's interesting, and while I've read this chapter two or three times, I find myself hesitating. And I think it's just because the realization just hit me that like we're close to wrapping up this book, and I kind of don't want it to end, as sappy as that is, you know?
Well, we got another book primed, ready to go. We don't have to wait for it to get here. We don't have to wait for it to be released. We both have it.
But
I'm holding mine right now,
yeah, that's good.
just
I
because I'm like ready to go.
You're ready to go.
Yeah.
Ready to go. Yeah, I don't. Okay, well, you're right. I shouldn't be so sappy, but I don't know. It's weird. It's weird in like a good way.
Yeah. It's going to be different. It's starting over on a
I
new book a little bit doing this, just because we haven't done it before. And
Right.
maybe we'll get used to that as we go through these. But at least this first one, it's going to be different.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And I think it's just my anxiety around like I don't know what to expect, whereas like I've gotten to know what to, for the most part, expect with this book. So I think it's just me getting in my head a little bit, but there's always rereads.
I think there is. And I think once we get going into the second book, it will be just fine.
Well, right, because a lot of fans rave about Dead House Gates being their fave or one of their faves. So, but yeah, um, I guess I feel like I should have more to say for this section, but being that it was so action packed, I don't have much else to say.
I think it's okay that you don't,
Okay, good.
because there's still plenty to unpack here.
Right, yeah, absolutely. So I guess if you're cool, I think we should move on.
I think that's a good idea.
All right. The death of Travail, the third to be killed, echoed in the back of Baruch and Derudin's minds. Derudin had made an ash circle on the floor. She sits in her chair across from an empty one. Baruch is hesitant to sit within the circle. He wants to be able to counterattack, and he wouldn't be able to use his warren while within the circle. Baruch just paces back and forth. Derudin comments on his pacing and compares it to that of the Cabal members before their final moments. Baruch stopped and paused to reply when suddenly a loud, inhuman scream was heard from the street. Immediately following the scream, a concussion rattled the walls. Baruch advances for the door, telling Derudin that his defenses have been weakened. Derudin tells Baruch that he should join her in the circle, as Vorkin could take advantage of the situation. Baruch at this point agrees, and starts to head to Derudin when a gust of air is felt on his left side of his face. Derudin calls out a cry of warning as Baruch turns. Vorkin, with her gloved fist glowing red, charges at Baruch. Knowing it would be too late, he raised his arms in an attempt at defense, when another figure emerged from the darkness with a flurry of blows to Vorkan. Vorkan reeled back and connected with this unknown figure. A shriek rang through the chamber as the woman hit the wall and then fell to the ground unmoving. It was at this instant that Baruch recognized the woman as Tistiandi. Pulling his gaze back to Vorkan, he realized that only one of her fists were glowing. Baruch gestured as yellow lightning lashed out at Vorkan. With a counterspell of her own, she engulfs the lightning into some black hole she had created. Baruch could hear Derudin yelling in the background, but his eyes remained fixed on Vorkan. Clearly he had met his match, and all he could do was wait for death. The hilt of a dagger protruded through Vorkan's chest. Baruch heard the Tistiandi woman on the floor tell him that it was all she could do. Derudin then appeared behind Vorkan, doing an incantation with her hands. Vorkan whirls around, and something sped from her hand. Derudin grunted and then crumpled to the ground. Anger filled Baruch, and he launched himself at Vorkan. Laughing, she dodged, ducked, dipped, dived, and dodged out of the way, throwing her glowing hands towards Baruch. Baruch was able to twist his body from the killing touch, staggering and hearing Vorkan's laughter behind him. A dozen feet in front of Baruch was a door, and it was open. Inside of it crouched a youth, holding blockish objects in each hand. Expecting Vorkan's death touch at any moment, he saw the youth straighten and he dived forward. As Baruch fell forward, two bricks passed over his head. Baruch heard the bricks strike Vorkan, one making a crunching sound and the other making a crackling sound. As Baruch hit the floor, the wind was knocked out of him. Baruch rolled onto his back and saw the face of the youth come into his view. Grinning, the youth tells Baruch that he's alive and that Ralik sent him to warn him. Baruch sits up and tells Crocus to tend to Derudin. Crocus tells Baruch that she's breathing, but there's some kind of knife and it's covered in sap. Reaching down to grab it, Baruch shouts to Crocus, telling him not to touch the knife. Baruch is quickly at Derudin's side. He is able to decipher that the sap-like substance is white peralt. Crocus tells Baruch that it's from a spider. Baruch tells Crocus that he is surprised or impressed at this knowledge. Baruch tells Crocus that Darudin is lucky because he is the only one who has an antidote for White Peralt. A vial appears in Baruch's hand as he pours it down the throat of Darudin. Darudin's breathing levels out, and Baruch takes a moment to sit back. He asks Crocus how he knows Rallick so well. Crocus introduces himself and explains that Mamet was his uncle. At this moment, Darudin opened her eyes and gave Crocus a condolence for his loss. Baruch sits up and curses as he realizes that Vorkin's body is gone. He then heads over to the body of the Tistiande woman. She is confirmed as dead. Crocus, with panic on his face, tells everyone that he has to go. Baruch thanks him for his excellent brick throwing skills. Crocus goes to the door, stops, and flips his coin. He tells everyone that he was just lucky, and then he leaves. So, the first thing that I find interesting about this section is Darudin comments on Baruch pacing back and forth. And I thought it was just a really clever moment because she associates this with the other three Cabal members that have been assassinated at this point, saying that it's likely that they were doing the same thing in preparation for Vorkin's attack. And look at how much it did them. So I think that was kind of one of the reasons that Baruch decided to essentially attempt to get into this like ash circle that Darudin had drawn.
I kind of imagine the circle as like a pentagram a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. I always just go back to the show Supernatural.
Yeah, something I haven't watched either.
You should check it out. It's a good show.
I know you've talked about it a few times.
It is a really it's a really good show. Lots of, I guess mythological and lore around the unnatural.
Fun stuff then.
Yeah. And I'm the concussion that rattled the walls and the shriek that he heard from the street. I'm assuming the shriek is from the 12-foot Galen demon as he was confronting Crocus and Rake in the streets, and the
I
concussion
think
was.
we should go ahead and finish up. I'm sorry.
No, it's cool. I was just
No, go ahead.
The concussion that rattled the walls was Crocus tripping the wards. So these two sections kind of play simultaneously, like while Vorkan and Baruch and Darudin are battling Vorkan at first is when Crocus was kind of frozen in the streets and Rake and the demon kind of go at it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think they're going on at the same time. This just popped into my head, but I think we should have called the demon the 12-foot bitch.
Why do you say that?
You gotta own it. Got his ass kicked.
Well put. The 12-foot bitch. All right, let's do it. The 12-foot soul shaking.
Yeah.
Maybe
There's something like a good name for a band, I think.
Bitch
12-foot
shift.
bitch.
Bitch shifting.
Yeah.
You little bitch shifter.
Oh boy.
Speaking of I guess while we're on the topic of not suitable for work type content, when Baruch kind of like, I imagine, Darth Sidious and his whole like lightning fingers. That's kind of how I imagine Baruch with his yellow lightning as he lashes out at Vorkan. And the counterspell that she has is this like what I considered some type of like black hole of magic that sucks in the magic, the yellow lightning from Baruch. And I just kept, for whatever dark, messed up reason my mind goes to, I was just like, is this her vagina? That is.
Oh, Jesus, Jess. Oh boy.
Yep.
Wow. Okay.
See, I'm just full of unexpected shit.
You went there, huh?
I
can't say that I thought of that at all.
Yeah.
Or would have.
Yeah.
But you did.
I did. For shame.
This is a I'd say that's more suitable for work than for kids. So,
Well, I mean,
kids,
hopefully there's
earmuffs.
right earmuffs. Earmuffs, another Vince Vaughn uh uh reference there, along with the dodge, duck, dip, dive, and dodge.
That's 2 episodes in a row, I think, that we've had a dodgeball reference. I
I
think I did the same thing the last one.
I think so, yeah. I don't remember what was the last one.
Uh,
I
I
think
don't
you did the
remember.
dodge,
Something
duck, dip, dive,
similar.
dodge, right?
I was like, if you dodge
Oh,
whatever, you can dodge a ball.
right. If you could dodge a wrench, you could dodge a ball.
Right. Yeah, it wasn't a wrench, though. I don't remember what it was.
Oh, I thought it was a wrench.
Well, yeah, the movie it is, but yeah,
Oh, right. Yeah,
for the book, whatever was needing to be dodged, I inserted in place of the wrench.
very well put. The only other
That took
thing,
a dark turn, about as dark as that black hole, I guess.
no. Um, okay, we'll move away from vaginas now, and we'll move to crackling sounds.
Can't wait to hear what you got for this.
It's not, it's along the lines of the book, but it's said in a section that the bricks that fucking Crocus chucks at Vorkan, and I'm assuming, damages her to an extent where she gets the fuck out, But it said that one had a crackling sound and it accompanied a flash of red. So, are these some types of magical bricks or are they simply bricks? Like, is the flash of red, like, I could see that being like a magical property, but at the same time, like, I could see it like maybe dust connecting with Vorkan, and when I think of a brick, I think of a red brick. So, is it simply just the red dust that like flash of red, is that a light or is that like it could be any type of element.
Maybe this is just some supporting evidence for Crocus having a warren.
This very well could be some supporting evidence, or
I don't know. I kind of thought they were just normal bricks, I guess, but that was just me.
yeah, I,
But
I
I mean, I guess I don't know.
I'm leaning on the side that they're normal bricks too, but this is just me questioning myself.
It's easy to do that when you read this stuff.
Right. But also, can we talk about how Vorkan is able to kill 3 Cabal members and injure a 4th Cabal member, and on the verge of killing a 5th, or, killing the 4th Cabal member, and is taken out by 2 fucking bricks?
By a freaking kid
By a kid. Right.
with
I mean,
bricks.
how? I mean, yeah, bricks fucking hurt when they hit you, but at the same time, like, I don't know. Maybe it's just she didn't see it coming, or
It's the coin, man. It's the luck.
yeah. It doesn't even matter what type of weapon you have against a fucking high mage assassin. Bricks will do it.
I guess.
That's funny. My other question is Vorkan's body is gone, but I'm curious as to where this leads to. And
So do you? I guess I wasn't sure if Orkin was dead or just like retreated. I guess.
I mean, being that her body was gone, when I immediately read the section, I thought that she, like, someone had picked her up, you know, someone like swung in while they were tending to Jerudan and just, stole the body, so to speak. But, I'm also curious as to the consequences. Is Kalam full of shit when he was talking about the Jakatas, or is that legit? Does Empress Lucine find out about this and attempt to kill Vorkan for failing? Like, what are the consequences for not pulling through? You know?
I don't know. I feel like it's another one of those things that's just leaving us questions here at the end of the book. Instead of giving us answers.
Well, right. And I just thought it was again so jarring that I'm reading this last chapter and I'm like, it's so action packed. Like, when does shit calm down and you get the fairy tale ending, so to speak?
I think maybe on the last book, but I don't know if it's going to be a fairy tale ending.
If this is any type of measure, I don't think so. I've got a feeling that it's going to go all the way up to the last chapter of the last book.
That last sentence.
Right, last sentence, exactly. But yeah, I don't even want to think about my expectations or the anticipation around the rest of the series.
Well, I mean, a lot of the stuff I've seen surrounding the series, after people read it, saying that it like changed their world, in regards to reading. So I don't know. I'm excited to get there, but not in a rush to do it.
No, no, I mean we've got another 4.5 years.
Hey, man, I'm totally cool doing this well beyond that.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm sure there'll be allow plenty of times for other things to come out that we can review. Plus we got our side quest stuff.
Yeah.
So, any theories on the Tistiande woman that battled Vorkan here?
I was going to ask you about that.
I mean, if I had to
I
predict,
was wondering who it was.
yeah, if I had to predict, I think it's Sarat.
Think so?
I think so. Yeah. When I was reading this, I'm like, this has because she's like she's the dominant, outside of Rake, she's the only other one that has been, kind of a B character involved a little bit. I think that luck has definitely not been on her side um, for a long time now.
Make a lot of good points.
So that's just where my mind went. I very well could be wrong, but I feel like we get an answer later on in the chapter. But those are my
Okay.
initial thoughts.
I can get on board with you. I I think you make some good points.
Sweet. But yeah, I mean it was just another action packed section, and outside of, the thankfully Baruch has the antidote to the white Peralt, and I thought the way that Vorkan was described is like she was aggressive, she was on the offensive, these glowing red hands thing was pretty cool to read, like, and then the dagger dipped in spider sap, essentially. That was cool too. So, lots of good stuff.
Yeah, it must have been a bunch of spiders. I mean, or a really big one.
I always imagined a really giant one. I don't know if the thought ever occurred to me that a bunch of little ones would contribute to the sap.
I think a big one makes more sense. But hey, I don't know. Maybe it's like a billion small ones.
Very well could be. But yeah, I guess I don't have any final thoughts for this section. Did you?
I don't think so.
Alrighty then. Should we move the train?
We'll move the train.
Alrighty.
Brand was next to Call's bed. He said he was still asleep, so Whiskey Jack could go ahead. Kalam and the two saboteurs had only arrived a few minutes ago. Whiskey Jack thought about the fact that they had suffered no losses thus far. But Perrin's armor had taken a beating and looked like absolute shit. That and the look on his face as he carried Lauren's lifeless body and laid her on the other bed kept Whiskey Jack from asking about Perrin's emotional health. Whiskey Jack looked around the room. Everyone was looking back at him. His eyes stopped on Sari, or Apsalar. Whatever Mallet had done, she definitely wasn't the same girl he had known before. Mallet wasn't even really sure what he had done. She had so many emotions running through her, knowledge and memories of what she had done in some cases, but she appeared to be holding it all together. She told Whiskey Jack that she wished to return home. Whiskey Jack had no objections, but he had no idea how she would cross 2 continents and an ocean between the two. Whiskey Jack reached for the bone phone. There had been a battle in the city's streets, and Quick Ben had been able to confirm the demon's death. He still seemed surprised about it. Whiskey Jack sighed, rubbed his leg, and dialed the bone phone, immediately establishing contact with Dujek. Dujek says it's about freaking time, and don't bother about the Ghislaine. Tishran's in a coma or something. Everyone heard a scream, so they know Rake took the 12-foot bitch out. What else has happened? Whiskey Jack says that Lauren's dead, and they have her body. The streets are still mined and ready to explode, but they don't plan on doing that since the gas lines will blow and basically kill everyone. So they're going to pull out of the city. Dujek says there are 2 problems. First, is that they're about to lose Pale. Caladan Brood left his Crimson Guard in the north and took his Tisty Andy to Pale. He has Rivi and Jorg Spargast, and they fucked up the Gold Moranth. Secondly, gets better yet, or worse, depending on your point of view, but basically it's bad. The Seven Cities are mere weeks away from open rebellion, and the Empress knows it. Claws from Genebaris arrived minutes ago looking for Teishren. Luckily, his guys got Teishren before the Claw. He was carrying a handwritten message to the Empress. He's been outlawed. He's to be arrested and executed. They're officially on their own now. Whiskey Jack says he understands and wants to know when they march. Dujek says the Black Moranth are still with him for some unknown reason. He has a meeting with Caladan Brute and Keller tomorrow morning. Things will shake out one of two ways. Either he'll let them walk or he'll kill them, taking Pale in the process. But everything is hinged on what he, I think Caladan Brood, knows about the Panny and Seer. Whiskey Jack says they're meeting up with some Black Moranth in a couple days. They can take them to him then. Dujek says no, they might be under siege by then. The Black's orders are to drop them at the Catlin Plain, though he is welcome to try and convince them otherwise. Whiskey Jack says it'll just take them longer to get to him is all. Dujek asks if Paran is there. He says he is. Dujek says what he has to say next is meant for Whiskey Jack, but he wants Paran to hear also. He tells Whiskey Jack that Paran now has control of the bridge burners, and Whiskey Jack is now Dujek's second in command, so he cannot be anywhere near Pale. Dujek tells Paran that any of the current bridge burners are free to leave if they choose. Also, with Whiskey Jack between commissions, he's just along for the ride. Dujek says the Black Moranth will know the story by the time they pick them up, so just go with them. And says hopefully they'll talk later. Paran asks who wants to be one of Dujek's first rebels. Trotz rose first, followed by Quickpen, Hedge, and Mallet. Kalam and Fiddler rose too, and they said they're with him, but they're not actually going with him. Paran didn't understand. Absalar spoke up. She said they may find it hard to put into words, but they are going with her back to the Empire, back to home. Fiddler says they felt like they owe it to her, but they will come back if they're able to. Everyone looked to Call. He was awake. Call's eyes went to the bone phone. Paran surmised that he had heard everything and says you've been awake for some time. Call asked if they needed any help getting out of Darujistan.
I think this is the part of the chapter where I started to feel things kind of like that happy ending, so to speak. Like things are kind of calming down. The demon, the Jaghut, they're dead. We don't know what happened to Rake. And we just kind of get a little bit of a background as to what is basically kind of like the next step. I don't know. Did you feel that way at all?
I mean, a little bit. It's hard to say we really get like closure. It's just like it's setting up the next leg of the journey, really.
Right. Yeah.
So
no,
we've got like two parties, right? You've got the rebels now, basically. I guess they kind of maybe always have been, and then you've got the three amigos, going the other direction, and just on that note, if they got to cross two continents and an ocean, I really want to see like a globe, like of this world, just where everything is like on a globe platform.
Oh yeah, that would be cool.
I like that type of stuff. I like geography and that type of shit. So yeah, I'd like to see that.
It really kind of brings a sense of scale that I never really like appreciated before. I was just, for whatever reason, I always just thought it was kind of like on the same map, so to speak. But it also kind of makes sense as to why, like, at the beginning of the book, when I would check out the maps, like, and I could never for the life of me find Malaz City, and that's because it's on a different continent.
Yeah.
So
I think about like I could like reading the Wheel of Time. I always liked looking at the map of the world there and kind of imagining where the characters went, and then even more so when I read A Song of Ice and Fire. I could spend a really long time just looking at the maps in the front of those books. So I know we have some maps in this one, but I don't know. I just always enjoyed looking at that stuff, just kind of imagining what all that stuff's like.
Right, yeah. I agree. I'm the same way. So I think it just kind of is one of those smaller little nuancy things that just kind of adds to the story that we definitely don't get a picture of some of that, but at the same time we do get a picture of, the major landscapes. And going back to the first chapter, like that totally took place on a different continent. Like just that those pieces of information alone are like baffling to me, you know?
Yeah,
This whole
yeah.
time. Yeah.
I just want to see everywhere.
Right. Right. Any thoughts on Taishren here and his coma?
Fucker deserved it.
Yeah. I meant more like any thoughts as to like why he's in a coma?
He must have been tied to the demon somehow.
That's what I'm thinking. And I'm thinking it goes back into this whole soul taken, which what I've deduced is some type of, shape shifting, right? So my guess is
Yeah,
that Lorne and Taishren had this plan up their sleeve, and Taishren gave Lorne the vial with the Galen uh, Lord in it, and as soon as that was released, it just kind of like automatically makes Taishren like drive it. I don't really have any more sophisticated details of about that, but that's my guess.
yeah. I don't know. I guess the specifics of it, but I mean, it. Like, I don't think he did it just because he's like surprised, like, oh my god, my demon like was defeated. Arr! Like, there must have been some sort of magical or physical connection that
Right.
you know like, overloaded him. I guess.
I mean, the demon dies, so I can only imagine that the coma and the death of the demon are linked as well.
You think it's like when Mammoth was kind of stuck when the Jaghead was being freed?
I didn't even think of that, but yeah,
Kind of
absolutely.
similar to that, maybe. I don't
Yeah.
know. I'm just throwing things out. I didn't really have anything.
Yeah, definitive. Yeah.
Right? Yeah, it just kind of came to me.
But yeah, it's just it's crazy. It's just there's so much like you said perfectly. There's definitely very little closure here, but it does feel like set up for kind of like the next chapter, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that we don't have.
Right, yeah, that we don't have. But I guess it just brings me back to the whole outlying. I want to say that it's not really a surprise for me. I kind of felt like that was coming in one way, shape, or form. But I guess
The
it's
what? I'm sorry, I'm not sure I heard you.
oh the outlying of the bridge burners and
Oh,
Jack, and
gotcha.
so
Yeah.
I think that it's while I didn't see it coming, looking at it from their perspective, like now they're officially ostracized from the empire, which means that they no longer have those resources. So it's just like, what next? It's just there's a state of wonder, like, okay, well now it's official. So what next?
They got to stay frosty. They're in strong shape.
Stay frosty. That's good. I like that.
That was an aliens reference.
I don't remember that. I gotta watch those movies again. It's been a minute.
Oh, I could watch those movies every day.
Yeah, yeah, I could too.
One part that I struggled with, and maybe it's just because I don't have a military background, but so I get like, okay, Whiskey Jack's got promoted, right?
Hmm.
But what does it mean? He's between commissions, so he's just along for the ride. I don't really get that.
Well, I think that it has to do with Dujek definitely doesn't want him anywhere near Pale, even though Dujek is essentially promoting him to his like right hand man, right? So I think it's just one to keep him protected from being killed. Two, it's also to in the event that Dujek maybe gets killed, that Whiskey Jack is somewhere else to take the helm. And three, uh he's also no longer in charge of the bridge burners, if that makes sense. So he's like,
Yeah,
no, he
I
doesn't.
get that, but I just don't like. He's going to be traveling with them, but he's like if they're in a battle, he's just going to hang back, or like what? I don't. That's what maybe confuses me a little bit.
I think that that's just kind of where Dujek was just like, you can do as you please. If he wants to go along for the ride, like go be it, or if you want to, yeah, I don't, yeah, I guess I can't further analyze what that would mean either, but that's my stab at it.
Fair enough. I like that Fiddler and Kalam are going with sorry, Apsalar. Um, I feel like there's some good adventure there, so hopefully we see them at some point again.
I hope so. I think we will. I've got a feeling that things don't go the way that Apsalar imagines it, because
Oh, I'm sure not. Yeah.
I don't think that I think that she's still under the impression that her hometown is fine and dandy, but because as you recall, all the way back to the first chapter, she essentially gets possessed before everybody gets massacred. So that's where her mind is left off.
Yeah, I suppose I mean, she's got some gaps there. So yeah.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. It's also just, another part of my theory that it's a setup for the next adventure. I think that there's some parting ways with our characters here. And then I would imagine, again, only going based on what I know about fantasy tropes, is that eventually they kind of come back together to defeat this whatever that's out there. I think the bridge
Right.
burners and Dujek and all these guys are going to rendezvous and focus their attention on one parlaying with Caladan Brood, which I think is just kind of a way of saying taking sides with them. Like I think that eventually they'll kind of partner up to take on the bigger force here.
Yeah. It's like this isn't goodbye. It's see you later type deal until we come back to kick some ass.
Right, exactly. Lots of good information. Our bone phone comes back.
The bone phone. I like the bone phone.
Yeah, it was already spoiled to us that it doesn't continue past this book, though. But I think that we'll,
Oh, was it? I guess I didn't remember that. That's
yeah,
too bad.
yeah. Maybe I shouldn't have said anything, but it's okay. We can keep the bone phone in our spirits. We can maybe try to implement it in books to come.
Yeah. Do you think Call waking up at the end was significant?
Oh, absolutely. I think again, it's a foreshadowing to a partnership because Call is linked to the other characters of Darujistan. So I think it's just a bond between the bridge burners and, the eel and Crocus and Rallick and stuff.
Let's see how it actually plays out, but I think that's a good thought, a good idea.
Sweet. Yeah. Yeah. I'm left with a lot of wonder.
Yes, definitely.
So hopefully the prologue can help help maybe make sense some of this stuff, but with it being 3 or 4 pages, I doubt that.
Yeah, it'd be hard to say, but we'll know soon enough.
Right. I guess with that being said, I'm fine with moving on. I don't really have anything else that I feel like should be deduced in this section.
Yeah, go ahead, take it away.
Bralick stood in the darkness beneath the trees at the edge of the glade. It appears that his magic deadening powers were not working after all. He had been removed from the stump, or finished, by what had felt like a giant godlike hand. He had watched in amazement when a maze of roots made their way towards the terrace where, Whiskey Jack and Quick Ben and Derudin were all, and Mammoth taking place. He had heard a shriek, and then the maze of roots returned with a man-shaped apparition that it made its way back into the ground. Rallick at this moment felt euphoric as he felt that now what grew there was right and just. What had been a tree stump a few hours ago was now a big ass house, with balconies which led to some kind of tower. The glade around the house had changed too. Mounds of grounds were scattered around the yard as if it were a burial ground. The roots had dragged the man shaped apparition into one of the mounds. To Rallick, it just felt right, as if he had an affinity for this child house, and he knew it knew of him, and would accept him. Rallick sat there watching the house define its features. Behind him he heard rustling, and whirled to see Vorkan struggling through the undergrowth. Vorkan's face was covered in blood. She nearly collapsed in Rallick's arms. Vorkan informs Rallick that Tisniande are after her as they seek to avenge a murder. Rallick being accustomed to the dark surrounding him, he was able to detect silent movement within the trees. Vorkan, now unconscious, is thrown over Rallick's shoulders as he bolts for the house. He knew it would open for him, and it did. A gust of warm, sweet wind passed Rallick, and he entered with pause.
I don't know why I didn't remember earlier that when Vorkin disappeared, that it came to this point, but I did not remember that.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I mean, the bricks definitely did some damage. I mean, which you think of how minuscule two bricks are compared to a high mage, I mean, I just get this feeling that there's got to be something more.
Yeah, but like, I mean, if you got hit in the face with a brick, like, you're not going to be like, yeah, that was nothing.
Right. But I mean, yeah, I don't know. I guess it may just depend on what type of warren she has too, though. I know that some warrens are for healing, but could you even heal yourself? Or, are there limitations? We don't really know.
Yeah, yeah, we don't know.
But yeah, I think it's cool that there's some time shifting here, like this clearly the last three chapters are taking place, simultaneously with this chapter or with this section along with previous chapters or the last chapter rather, because he was able to witness this apparition being dragged by roots into one of the mounds that just suddenly appear, surrounding this house. So the whole house thing has me dumbfounded because, like, I just find it extremely odd. Is this Finis some type of siren? I mean, he just watched a man-shaped something get dragged into the ground by roots, and you think it's right and just? It sounds like from previous discussions that Rhea's soul is imprisoned. So is that why Rallick is feeling it's right and just? Like, I guess I'm just having a hard time connecting what was the Finnist, like the Azath and the Finnist. And from what I understand, the Finnist was defeated. So did the Azath like commandeer the Finnist? And you know, uh, it's just there's so much that I don't feel got explained. And again, not that like I'm angry about it, but I feel like all will be revealed in good time. But it's just it's such an interesting concept. I'm drawn to want to know more. You know?
Oh, yeah. Uh, I think to me, the as if, like, I feel like it almost like absorbed the fittest.
Right.
This is kind of how I feel. But yeah, this whole house deal is kind of weird, and then the fact that he just like walks into it like confidently at that, where like I feel like even though your other option is shit, like I either go in here and take my chances or I stay out here and get murdered. He appears to feel confident and safe with going into this house.
Right. Like there's a connection there though. Like, don't you find that weird?
Yes, very much so.
I just want to know what this
Because
connection
I
is.
would be like, I don't know about this.
Right, right. I would be wary as hell. Like this was a mere and again, the time doesn't really you don't really get a sense of time here, but we're talking hours. It goes from a tiny little stump to this huge massive house, which the description of the house was amazeballs. Like I know nowhere did it justice by calling it a house by any means. So the description of it growing in front of Ralik's eyes was awesome, but that doesn't explain what the fuck is happening at all.
Yeah, not a lot, does it?
Mm-mm. No, which I'm sure is intentional.
I think so.
The only other thing I guess that I found weird that is in relation to the house was it described as the roots dragging the man-shaped apparition into one of the mounds. So like I feel like there's a connection between, the barrow or borrow barrows and the events that unfolded to create this landscape. I'm just not quite sure how to put my finger on it. Like I feel like the way barrows are made are interrelation to how it was just described in the building of this house. You know what I mean? Like in order to create a barrow, is there some type of magic involved? Like I always just thought it was a man-made hill or a man-made grave, you know?
Well, I mean, we knew there was a bunch of wards and stuff holding it in there, so I mean, I guess I figured there's definitely magic involved.
So did the Jag Hut that imprisoned Reyes, did they do something similar to this?
Probably.
Yeah.
I guess I don't. So I don't know. I guess I wonder if we'll see any of that, if we'll circle back around to that or not.
It's just it's just interesting. Like obviously the goal of Reyes was to get the Finnest because that would essentially unleash all of his power, right? Well, that didn't happen.
Yeah.
So I would call this a rogue Finnest. And it got commandeered by whatever this Azath is. So is it just is that simply what it is? Is just the Finnest is power for the taking? Or,
I guess I don't know.
if no one takes it, is it just the Finnest stuck? Is it symbiotic? Does it need some type of host? Or would it thrive on its own?
I have no idea. Sorry, I don't have any answers for you.
No, no, it's cool. It's all right. Yeah, it's just, yeah. I mean, and he's entering this house, right? So again, there's this whole setup piece, right? Like the current events are concluded. However, there's still some new information that's being introduced, as well as what I feel like a setup for Rallick and Vorkan's next adventure. So we've got a lot of different pieces that are potentially going in different directions, you know?
There's many directions this is going. Yes. It's not making it any easier to keep track of all the directions it is going.
No, not at all. Not at all. But yeah, I guess leaving the wonder on the table, I don't have anything else for this particular section outside of the wonder.
All right. Well, I will take care of my last section here then.
Sweet.
Corlat, Bloodkin to Surratt, slowed as she got closer to the strange house. The door had closed behind their prey. She hunched down, and the rest of the crew gathered round. One asked if she had summoned their lord. Corlat said she knew of a creation from the old times, the dead house of Malaz City, the Adhen house of the seven cities, Azath, Idamarn, pillars of innocence. That door will not open for them. Peralt said it opened for them, though. Yes, because there was precedence. These Azath choose their own. That was the way with the dead house. Two men were chosen, one to be emperor and another to accompany him. Kellanved and Dancer. Orphantal says he can sense its power Their lord could destroy it while it's young and weak. Gorlat says yes, he could, but she is bloodkin to the fallen. The quest for vengeance is ended. Their lord will not be called. Leave him to rest and recovery. The Azath will not be touched. The Queen of Darkness spoke thus of light when it was first born. It is new, and what is new is innocent, and what is innocent is precious. Observe this child of wonder and no respect. Orphantal wasn't happy and finished the verse. Thus did light survive, and so was darkness destroyed. The purity vanquished, he continued. The light became corrupted and destroyed their world. He wanted to know if Corlett had forgotten that. Corlett wore a sad smile and replied, cherish such flaws, for our queen's was hope, and so is mine. Now we must leave. So I feel like this house is a dead house. I kind of feel like it's almost a portal or something. But I feel like that is the point of our epigraph on this chapter.
Gotcha.
Um,
That makes sense.
and I had some thoughts on how to relate that earlier, and now I can't really remember. But I think this kind of solidifies that I think you're right that Surat was the Tistiandi that died.
Yeah. Which I kind of feel bad about, you know. I want to say that I didn't. There was never a moment where I didn't like Surat, you know.
Yeah,
I thought her character arc was unknown for the most part, but I I would follow along and, you know, I could understand her motives and, you know, I didn't hate her. Not like Ocelot.
right. Yeah, no, and that's like when I read through this, I was like, I didn't know who they were talking about. But then after listening to you talk, and I was like, okay, well that makes sense, and this just kind of backs that up. So
Right.
I would be pretty confident that I think you're right that it was Surat that.
So, do you think that this section is alluding to the next book at all?
I guess I don't know how much, but I think there's definitely some sort of tie. I mean, we get the word dead house.
Right.
And dead house is the first, it's I don't know how much it'll tie it, I guess, but I think there's definitely going to be, this is some sort of connection to the next book.
Yeah. And I think that the weird thing that I keep going back to, and it's so prominent in my mind, is when we first met Lorne, and well, not first met Lorne, sorry. When we first met Tool, he was saving Lorne's ass from the bar gas. And there was a moment when she was kind of healing and recovering and, you know, being bandaged up by Talk that she had observed Tool just kind of like talking or listening potentially to the Barrows. So I'm wondering if like the dead house, the mounds that have been, you know, that are now surrounding. I wonder if the Talani Mass have some type of connection with the Dead House Gates or Dead House, you know, because like Dead House Gates makes me think that maybe there's another way to enter. And going off the information that I have, which is really fucking little, based on the
Yeah.
you know, the title of the book, Dead House Gates, I'm wondering if the next adventure for either the Bridge Burners or Krupp, Murillo, Crocus, is to attempt to find Rallick and Vorkan. So while they cannot enter here, maybe there is some type of gate or dead house gate that they can access to. I guess I just kind of think of it as like maybe the Tower of Genji in Wheel of Time a little bit. If you know what I mean, like this just like alternate reality, this dimension where yeah, I don't even fucking know where I'm going. But I feel like Tool, the Talanimas, Dead House, Azath have something in common.
The good news is we don't have too long to find out.
That's wow, we have 6 more months to find out. I would
Yeah.
imagine that
I mean, we'll start down that road pretty quick here.
right, yeah, exactly. So Another section that has just left me with so much wonder and so much thoughts, and I love that. I absolutely do, but it drives me crazy not knowing sometimes.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I guess my last thought for this section. This quote where it says, "It is new, and what is new is innocent, and what is innocent is precious. Observe this child of wonder and no respect." The whole time, like when I read that, my mind instantly went to Tattersail being
Ah,
reborn. I don't know why, but to me, it seems like it fits. And maybe it's got nothing to do with Tattersail at all, being reborn, but it's just where my mind went. That's about all I can say.
maybe. I think that from what I understand about the Tistiande is that they were not happy that the Queen of Darkness was allowing light to essentially exist, right? And according to the Tistiande, the light survived, and so darkness was destroyed, right? Like light lights up darkness. It no longer can exist, kind of a thing. And I think that this goes back to I think child is referring to the fact that it's new and relates to what is innocent is precious. So don't don't react how we did when Queen of Darkness allowed light to destroy the dark, but allow whatever this house in Azath is to do what it's going to do and respect that, because it seems to be some type of a selection of some sort. I can only imagine. So is it possible that Rallick is being chosen for some type of higher calling? Because apparently, from what I understand from this section, is that the Azath choose their own, and it sounds like they chose the previous emperor and his right hand man. And if we know anything about the emperor, is that he led by loyalty and not by fear. So this Azath may not be a bad thing, and I think that's what Corlat is trying to insinuate with the other Tistianda here. Is that no, we don't want to call Rake. We would just want to let it thrive because there's a potential that there's some good that will come out of it.
But they don't all agree with that.
No, not at all. Which it seems like the Tistiande are they're a little torn.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, I don't know that it's 50-50 split, but
Right, right. But
Orphantal isn't happy about it.
right. That's just my interpretation. And I think that is the reason why she essentially maybe takes a little bit of ownership here. Like, my blood kin has been avenged, even though not really in traditional terms. But I think this is her way of saying it's over. There's really no way that we can get in here or follow, and we
Right.
shouldn't destroy it.
Yeah. I don't have anything else for that section here. You want to take us down the home stretch?
Let's bring her home.
The last 90, 60 feet. That's what it is in baseball, right? I don't remember.
I don't either.
90, 90 feet, 60 feet, 6 inches to home plate to pitcher's mound. 90 feet between the bases.
Sweet. Let's bring her
Swing
back
for the
home.
fences, man.
Grand slam. Murillo and Krupp are leaning against the gate to Lady Simitel's estate. The streets are still empty from the night's horrors. Krupp makes a comment about the speed at which Crocus is running towards them. Murillo makes a comment that he's had an exhausting night. Krupp gestures to Moonspawn, which has now left the city and is traveling west. Murillo interjects that he needs a drink. Krupp says that this is a wonderful idea, but they should wait for Crocus to arrive. Crocus slows his run as he approaches his two friends and panically tells them that Apsalar has been kidnapped by the Malazans and that Rallick is still in the garden. Krupp shushes him and tells him that he knows the whereabouts of Apsalar, and Crocus should not worry. As for Rallick, Krupp doesn't reveal a goddamn thing about Rallick and tells Crocus to take a deep breath and breathe in the night air. Krupp takes their arms, and they start walking. Murillo explains that there is some strange house in Call's garden. Krupp exclaims that so much was revealed with that statement, and begins to explain that Crocus only seems to be concerned with the fair maiden. Crocus is like, she wasn't that fair anyway. Krupp takes a deep breath and asks Crocus if he's going to swoon over his love interest or hear the story of how Lady Simitel's estate became Call's estate. Crocus said that of course he would. The three of them walk as Krupp begins the story. And this is how this motherfucking chapter ends.
Yeah.
Like,
Just
three amigos riding into the sunset, telling a story.
doesn't really. It's not a very satisfying. I mean, it's not the whole ending yet, but
No.
we still have the epilogue, but it is kind of frustrating when he's kind of like, well, what the hell?
Well, right, and because there's this all of this information that has just been bestowed upon us, and then also all of the other things that, at least for me, I was unable to make ties to. But I mean, I guess thinking about it, for it in this moment that these characters are in, it feels like a not necessarily an end, but like a transition between what events have occurred previously to what new situations they have to deal with now, you know.
Yeah.
But I think it's funny that Krupp decides to change the subject about the thing that I'm personally most curious about, and I'm just guessing that maybe he saw a new pattern of some kind, and my bet is it's revolving around Rallick. And it can't be coincidence that the next book is called Dead House Gates and he entered a dead house. So I think that again there's something there. I think these guys, Krupp is wanting some type of meal before he goes on to his next adventure, and all three of them just kind of recap the events that have happened. So while I am um, a little unsatisfied or unfulfilled with the way the book has concluded, I see to the characters in that moment that it is a conclusion to them.
Yeah. It's just you just kind of always wish there's more.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, I guess that's why it's a 10-book series.
We don't have to rush through it.
Well, but yeah, I didn't. I mean, that was really the only thing that I had in the section. There wasn't really any much information to pick out about it.
Yeah, I don't think that I've got anything to add on top of it.
I can only imagine that the prologue is, or not the prologue, but the epilogue is, in the traditional fantasy kind of format, right? Like, it's probably going to give us an update however many weeks or months later, et cetera, et cetera, is my guess.
And we will talk about it next week. Well, not next week, later this week.
Right, on Saturday. That'll be fun. I'm looking forward to that. Really looking forward.
Yeah, it'll be a good time.
But yeah, I guess we brought it around home. How you feeling?
I don't really know. I mean,
it's a good way to put
it's
it.
exciting that we're essentially finished with this book, and that's exciting, and we'll move on to a new one. But it's such a different way to read a book that, at least we get to keep doing it.
Right.
So we got that to look forward to. It's not done.
No, it's not done. And I think that's just what I got to keep reminding myself is that it's not done. And there will be answers. And if not, there's always a reread to see if I could pick something up.
Right. Well, anything else you want to add in here at the end?
No, not at all. Action-packed chapter. And for our characters, at least, a temporary reprieve from things.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this next one stacks up. I mean, this one was a lot of fun, so it's gonna be like you kind of wonder how do you top that, but people seem to love the second book, so
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I keep hearing. So hopefully the next one
So
is more.
maybe we'll have to maybe keep a running ranking of the books that we've made it through.
Yeah, we totally can. I mean, I would say for right now, this is our top.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking too. It's the best book we've read in this series so far.
Right, yeah, we're loving it. It's so far the best. But yeah, cool. I guess let's not Minnesota goodbye this and let's end the episode.
All right, man. Well, you have a good week. I'm sure we'll talk, and then we'll talk on Saturday.
Yeah, we'll chat on Saturday. Talk about the epilogue.
All right. Sounds good, buddy.
All right, man.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.